This particular project is going to just show you an example of a program that uses multiple classes and how those classes might work together. Okay, you can find all of these files on Blackboard. If we take a look, it's going to be under your semester project. If we scroll down to our semester project folder, and inside this folder, all of these files will be found here under semester project description. It's multiple class patient fees files. Okay, so some of you are creating a project that has inheritance, and then some of the descriptions just said that you had to use multiple classes. So this particular example is going to talk more about those multiple classes and how they work together. This particular project has 3 classes, and I'll just run it quickly here so you can kind of see what it executes. We are trying to calculate the bill for a patient that has maybe or maybe has not had surgery in a hospital, and we will also include any pharmacy charges that that patient has and the surgeries that the patient has had. So if we run this, has the patient stayed in the hospital, we will say how many days? We will say 3. Did the patient have surgery? Yes. We'll say knee surgery. Did they get medicine? Yes. They got pain pills and more medicine. Yes. They got some aspirin. Did they receive other medication? I'll say no. And then it outputs the hospital charges. So this particular program actually has a lot of example code that could be useful for several of you. It has some menus here. It has the accepting a yes or no. Please notice I didn't put in a capital Y, so they're using some type of C-string method to make that uppercase probably. And then it also just output in a nice format, so they're probably using set precision and using some formatting options that are good for us to see. So anyway, take a look at the driver program, which would be the, let's see here, Programming Challenge on 716. This is from your textbook. You can look up that challenge to see what the description was if you want. But how do you get all of these classes to work together? So basically, every class that is needed in main has to be pound included. You want to pound include all of your user-defined classes here after your built-in classes. So you want to make sure that you pound include these after the predefined headers or libraries. So all of your predefined libraries will come first, and then your user-defined files, which would be your classes, and then pound include just the using namespace standard. Okay. Please pay attention to the different methods. These give you kind of an outline for how to display surgery types, medication types, and display charges. So if we scroll down to one of those just real quick, it just kind of shows you a little bit of formatting and outputting. Now this one particularly, what this does, just to show you, it creates a single string and just says S types, and then it keeps adding, like it's basically producing this whole entire menu as one string, and then it outputs that one string. So when they do this plus equals plus equals plus equals to S types, it's concatenating and basically building this display. And so that's how they do that. Please notice the use of comments. You guys should have some comments in your programs. Notice here that the display charges uses all 3 classes, a patient account, a surgery account, class, and the pharmacy account. So all 3 classes are used in this last method. How they access some of those, they will create, for example, a hospital rate. They're going to call on the patient, which is a patient account, and get their daily rate. They're going to call on the surgery class and get the surgery charge. So these are all methods within those classes. And so they're using the dot operator to access the methods in those classes. After those, and they're using the variables that have been defined here as patient is a patient account, surgery is a surgery, and pharmacy is a pharmacy class. Days is going to use the patient account class. So all 3 classes are used in this last method here. And so you might want to kind of study this for how they set things up. This set width 8 kind of shows some formatting to get everything to line up correctly with the dollars, etc., etc. If we take a look at some of the individual classes, the patient account class I did make an edit to, and I'd probably have to make edits to the other one in the fact that I added a deconstructor. If we take a look at pharmacy, this one's produced by the textbook and they don't have a deconstructor there. You should have a deconstructor in all of your classes. So if you notice that there isn't one here, you should know that we need to add that. And then you have, in all of your classes, you're going to have their private instance fields and you're going to have your methods. Now, notice this method right here. This method is actually defined. I'm in the header file. And so this is what we call an inline method. If you have a very short method, they can be defined in the header file. And it's called an inline method. Also notice this one happens to be a private method, which means that it would not be able to be called from main. You would be able to call all of your public methods, like get the surgery charge, but to actually set it, you wouldn't be able to call that from within main. You'd have to call it from within the .cpp, probably for surgery. Also notice they're using the pound if and def here. Remember that you can use the pound pragma once. If you want to use that option instead of the lines, in this case 7, 8, and 31. So if you wanted to use the pound pragma once instead, you could. So now, you can go in and download this code and study each of the code blocks. I'm going to go back to patient account just to show a couple of things. So you have your private instance fields, you have all your public methods, you do have a couple inline methods here in this particular project. When you go to patientaccount.cpp, remember that all of the methods that are used in here have to have this scope resolution operator with the class that is using it. So this is saying that my patient account constructor is attached to the patient account class. My set days method is attached to the patient account class. And so just kind of keep that in mind. We've talked about that before. This one does use a constant in the implementation file, which is perfectly acceptable to use. It's actually better to use that if you can for a thing that would be consistent. And then it scrolls through some of the examples here. This would be a nice place. You could actually add just a little bit of exception handling if you wanted to get in your exception handling. And then we have a get daily rate, etc. And then I added this deconstructor as an example. So pretty common. But now let's take a look at pharmacy.h. And pharmacy.h actually needs to use the patient account. So please note that pharmacy.h needs to pound include patient account.h. So if a class relies upon another class and needs any methods from that other class, or needs to, it has it as, in this case, a parameter and a method, you have to pound include that class in the header file. You don't have to then pound include it if we look at pharmacy.cpp. The only thing that needs to be pound included in pharmacy.cpp is pharmacy.h, because patient-account.h was included in the pharmacy.h. It automatically then has access to all the patient accounts. So that would be a little bit of a change that you might take a look at or might need to know. This also shows another example of a switch case statement. Please notice they're using a patient account PT, and that all of those then patient accounts can access the methods that are available in patient account. So you will find likewise in surgery, surgery needs a patient account, and so we added a patient account in the .h file. In the .cpp file for surgery, then we only need to use surgery.h because we pound included patient account.h in the surgery.h header file. That all sounds kind of a little bit confusing, but basically if you need another class within a class, which some of you guys are going to be using, you do have to make sure that you pound include that. That usually is done in the header file, and then in the implementation file, we just use the surgery.h, which automatically includes our link to patient account in surgery's header file. Okay, so The implementation file for all three of these is also listed on the class website. And so please download these files and kind of use them, look at them as another model of how to use multiple classes and how to use the separation of header files and .cpp files.